Welcome, James. Thanks for being on the show.
That's my privilege.
So we're out here in West Virginia. You're my friend Marcus's dad, so I have an interview with him on the channel. I'll link it below. But it's great to have met you. We went for a run today. We're staying here at your house. And you've spoken a lot about a multitude of topics, including masculinity, but also like politics and what's going on with the world and so on. So we'll cover some of that. Just for the audience, if you'd like to introduce yourself, go ahead.
My name's James Tyree. I'm a farmer in West Virginia, central West Virginia. I've done a lot of things, wore a lot of hats throughout my life. Currently, I am focused on running ultra marathons, trail runs. My journey for the last 4 or 5 years. Okay.
That's awesome. So yeah, we'll cover the marathons because you started running when you were 63?
62.
62.
Yeah.
And you are now 67?
66.
66, okay. So 4 years of running marathons.
Yeah, I've run 4 marathons and 2 ultra marathons. DNF'd on one of the ultras.
And that was quite recent.
Quite.
Yeah. And was yesterday the first time you ran since that last marathon?
Yesterday.
Yesterday.
Yeah. So it was Saturday, a week of Saturday. So yesterday was Tuesday. It's about 10 days it took me to
get back on the horse.
Yeah, get back on the horse. It's a good way to put it. So you get a little beat up doing that, especially as an elderly person trying to do it out there with the young bucks and queens of the trail.
Yeah.
But I had a lot of fun. You know, you always have a chance to meet people. The type of people that do this sort of thing, some would think we're out of the box, so to speak. Maybe a few pass, you know, the 6-pack don't add up or something with them. They think it's kind of crazy. But the people that do it, there's some kind of bond there just because they do it. Or even just try to do it, you know. It's pretty cool. So, not only was I doing something in the development of becoming this, you know, over the past few years of the training, now it's more about the family, the type of people that participate and support these people that participate. That's just a great group of people, and I like being around them. So I'm trying.
You found real community in the marathon space.
Right.
Which is great, yeah. Start somewhere at the beginning, because I'm curious about your journey. What was your first career or job?
Here, I'd have to say was counseling. That was the group home for severely emotionally disturbed kids. I had gotten that bachelor's in philosophy and welded for a while, but fortunately I somewhere had enough sense to minor in psychology, and I got my foot in the door of that field, and wound up getting a master's degree in counseling before leaving the field. Then I was a family therapist for 6 years.
Did you enjoy that?
I did, to a point. There was, at the time I was entering the field, a therapist pretty much run their own business with the client, and it was confidential, and there wasn't a whole lot of paperwork because it was a skilled profession.
Mm-hmm.
And but managed care started coming in, and all the documentation that was involved in treating a mental health client was just a little too much for me, I suppose. So I changed my horse in that stream.
Yeah, I've heard even general practitioners today, family doctors, like a lot of the hours in their clinic is spent on paperwork.
Absolutely.
So they often have to hire someone to help them do that.
How would you feel as a crisis counselor with somebody coming in the door? They have a crisis, right?
Let's say they're
That's who you
imminently
are.
suicidal.
That's what you deal with.
Yeah.
And you have to get all this demographic information.
How old are you?
So that everybody can get paid.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what it was, a lot of.
And it would make the patient feel like you didn't really care about them as a person, they were just another statistic.
Well, I didn't behave that way.
No, but that system, right? Like those questions that you have to ask them for that demographic information.
Well, a lot of times I didn't ask those questions. I helped deal with the crisis
First.
and that was the first visit, and I didn't have a lot of paperwork, and that piles up after a while.
Right. Okay. So already I think I'm getting a sense of your character back then. How old were you when you started this
Counseling?
counseling? Yeah.
How old was I? How old are you?
He's 37.
You were 40?
Well, I was counseling when your mom and I, 2 years after your mom and I were married, I was working with the kids.
So you were 34.
34, yeah.
Building for a while. You were at college.
Yeah.
All of that.
I had a little concrete company that I mostly worked cleaning out lakes and ponds, people's backyards down there in Florida, because I didn't get enough business in the concrete.
Did you end up going to Florida for university?
Yeah.
Okay, that's why. Cool.
Yeah. Well, I originally started school here in West Virginia, and while I was in school, the second year, my support system all went to Florida. So after taking a couple years off of school and roaming around the country a bit, I realized the importance of an education and gave her another shot. Did much better the second time. And got a few degrees and whatnot. I think I came very close to becoming what I would consider a scholar, just like a student.
You liked academia?
I did. I really did. Once I got into it. Right. First time around when I was younger, it just didn't, it wasn't the same as the second time. Second time I was serious about being there and learning, and it worked out pretty good.
When I listen to you speak, it's interesting, like these last 2 days we've chatted, because you have both the rural upbringing and the country vigor and directness and honesty in how you speak, but then you also have, like, sometimes you'll throw in big words. Or
And I always did that in the city too.
Yeah.
I was just me.
Yeah.
And I had at times, I could see different agency personnel and stuff directing certain types of clients to me and stuff that, I don't know.
They could connect with you.
Perhaps they may have been afraid of or something.
Right.
And so I got a lot of that. But all in all, I mean, the experiences I had with counseling in Florida, I still yet to this day don't have much of an idea how many people I may have helped, per se. I remember getting some, well, I've got a print of bonsai tree that some lady gave me because they came in for marriage counseling, and evidently they got happier while they were in the process or something. And she sent me that. I've had a few things like that happen, but other than that, you don't really have any idea because there's never been any follow up past the planned follow up for the therapy. So 2 years down the road, you don't know what happened to those people generally, especially in the city. I wonder about that a lot. Hopefully I help somebody that may have helped somebody that saves us all. One never knows.
What did you get into from there?
I went from being a counselor and then a family therapist and that sort of direction to studying and getting a Series 7 broker's license and became a financial representative for Allen Douglas Securities there in Central Florida. Eventually, I had a job in between, but it didn't last long.
What drew you to stock trading and financial?
My second wife, high maintenance. All our problems were due to our finances, that sort of thing.
Okay.
Just trying to please her. And I kind of like this, I had no idea what I was doing, something new to learn, and I like kind of delving into things and coming out to the finish line. So the financial arena was something I had no knowledge of whatsoever. And I and two other people who had been previously on the same sales job decided we would study together for the test. And we studied 8 hours a day, 5 days a week for 30 days at the library. And then we took a 1-week course on that test 2 times. And we all passed it. And we all went to work in the same place. And then we found a better place. And we all went to work there.
That's kind of nice. You had a cohort with you that went through this whole journey. So
Yeah.
you weren't alone.
The ringleader's name was Steve. And he had been, when I first broke out of counseling and into the stock selling business, I got involved unknowingly that I would be so regrettable about not even knowing what I'm doing. But yeah, I'm naive in the industry for sure. I mean, that's the first thing I did, was I got involved in selling general partnerships with technology that didn't exist yet. Such as, we had this one project that was called iMall. It's what eBay is.
Interesting.
And we paid millions of dollars to consultants and engineers and all that stuff to develop iMall. Well, the government came in and shut the room down, and I couldn't even take my desk chair home.
Why did they shut it down?
Well, I don't know for sure. I was just a salesman. But I suppose because it wasn't supposed to be iMall, it was supposed to be eBay for some reason. eBay signed the right papers, got the right permissions, I don't know. Maybe their investors were higher up the ladder in the corporate favoritism. I don't have any idea. We decided, well, we'll get a Series 7 and be real brokers.
Right.
You know,
Informal broker.
and we'll sell stocks and bonds in companies that they do allow to exist.
Right.
You know? So we did that.
And what was that like?
Well, it was hard for me, mostly because it didn't take me but probably about a year to figure out that the people making the big money that you see stockbrokers make on, you know, it's presented on television and things like that. It was apparent to me that if you followed the rules, you couldn't make that kind of money at all.
What were the rules?
Well, rules like insider trading, rules like fine line when a broker calls his people and says, we need to do this, it would be so easy for that person to have his own interest because he gets a commission off of each time they switch into anything.
Right.
So, you know, if you didn't act like that, you know, you couldn't really make a lot of money very fast at all. Maybe over the course of several years you'd do very well, but you'd have to have a lot of money under management.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing by the investments.
Right.
What I saw in the brokerage industry, most brokers are just making a living. They're buying and selling stocks, not necessarily with the client at heart, you know. They're doing it to, well, I need a paycheck. I better put these 4 things in the mutual funds over here instead of, you know, they're just doing it for a paycheck. And,
Because they get paid per transaction
right.
rather than based on the results of the overall money.
And I didn't look very high up, but I suspect that the higher up you go in that industry, the worse the shenanigans and the deals are and stuff. It wasn't for me.
Were you able to communicate that to your wife at the time? Like, did she understand what you discovered?
No, we were already apart.
Oh, okay. I see. Stock brokerage, how old were you, approximately?
3.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about Taekwondo.
Right. 43. Okay. Still quite a while between then and now. 20 years or so. 23. So what did you do in that meantime then?
After that, I was just a farmer here in West Virginia.
Mm-hmm. So you grew crops and
I grow food and I hunt also.
And you sell what you get, basically, to make a living.
Make a living by trading.
Trading, bartering, sort of.
Well, I wouldn't even call it bartering. I give people stuff and they give me stuff.
Right.
That's all I got right now, except for a Social Security check.
Mm-hmm. And you did that since you were 43, roughly?
No.
No, that's just more recent.
Yeah, well, I had those daughters. Mm-hmm. You know, I was involved with that.
Right, you were parenting
my wife
for a while.
My ex-wife
Yeah.
is an RN, and she worked in this area. So for this area, just the one income was enough to. We did okay.
Makes sense.
But I canned a lot. We always had some kind of meat on the hoof, so to speak, that or things like. Since I come back to West Virginia, though, I always was resentful of all the years that I spent in Florida not getting to hunt up here, and because I was born and raised up here, and hunting was always pretty special to me.
Mm-hmm.
They taught me, and I didn't have him long. He passed away when I was 15.
Wow.
So I kind of resented the decades down in Florida, not being able to hunt. So when I did move back up here, I think that first year I was in the woods from October 12th to December 31st every day, doing some kind of hunting. I calmed down a little bit, but I've always not spent Thanksgiving with the family. I'm always on a trip hunting. It's kind of a ritual to me. And I found out in one of my hunting trips, I'm out there and this man stops, young man. It turns out he's a veterinarian in Virginia somewhere. And I was his hero. You know, I'd never seen him before that I knew of or anything. But he grew up because I spent 20 years in a tent just in hunting season in some of the worst weather that you can imagine in West Virginia. But he grew up hunting with his dad, and they would drive by my camps and stuff like that. And little did I know, even be concerned and stuff like that, you know. But he grew up watching me hunting like that, and I was his hunting hero. You know, that was pretty cool.
That must have felt good.
It did.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's people watching you sometimes you don't know, and you never know. It's just like the counseling thing. I don't know if I helped anybody. I suppose I did, but hey.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons to consider that every interaction matters. The way you carry yourself matters. It has more impact than you realize.
It, very much so, it could.
Yeah.
I think we interact with from time to time.
Mm-hmm. You might be someone else's angel, needed, but you don't know that's the role you're fulfilling, but
I'm getting that, I guess. Yeah, it could be like that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Marcus.
Like a timeline of your life. Let's go back. And we've looked at it from the perspective of career. So the topic the podcast is on is a lot to do with like men's issues and masculinity and all of that. So I'd like to understand, the progression of your relationships, what you learned along the way. But then also I want to ask you first, what is healthy masculinity to you from all your decades of experience?
Of the Lord Jesus Christ. Humanity. Mm-hmm. Probably be healthy feminism.
Jesus?
Follow, but yeah, pick up your cross and follow me.
Responsibility, bearing a burden, being willing to sacrifice for others, forgiving others, being compassionate, loving people regardless of...
Trying, best.
Yeah.
We all fall short in a lot of areas, but I think that because of grace, because of the plan, do that, what I was talking about today, surrender free will back to God and seek God in everything we do, which is very, very difficult to do. It's kind of like walking down the road with your vision and your mind and your focus behind you, watching yourself walk. It's kind of the same kind of thing, sort of. But hard to do. Practice, practice, practice. Patience and consistency. But I think the more we behave like that, the closer we get to being able to weed out the distractions, steering us away from inherent freedom which exists in the spirit. I think as long as we don't, there's somebody that might hear this that'll think, just I don't know why or what it's going to relate to in their lives, but I believe that because I don't believe that there's anything I do these days that isn't in an important purpose in God's plan. I think I would even be here if I hadn't have traded that free will for His. And you can ask my son. I was in pretty poor condition. I could go down a list of bad stuff, show you some scars and some surgeries. And there's no need of that. I'm a walking miracle. Or I call it falling forward rather than running, but I'm making some progress here. But it's happening.
Ultimately, that was the biggest career switch you made. It's not a career switch, but it was the choice to say, okay, I'm going to put it in God's hands.
Yeah. And God's got me just running right now. Well, it certainly brought me, I'm totally transformed. Yep. I lost 50 pounds. I can hunt a lot more. It's much more enjoyable. You know, it seemed like a very long run is now a short run. So, yeah, I'm enjoying that to a degree. I mean, it's a lot of hard work to get there. A lot of, I have to say, suffering. But in those moments where I can't go on, there's one of those angels, or the hand of God, or you know, literally, I felt at one time I felt like crawling up in a ball and crying on the trail because my back was hurting so bad. And at the same time I was thinking about going down and just, I'm done. I saw a spring coming out of the side of the hill. It wasn't very far away, so I had that cool towel over there that I carry in my vest. You get it wet and shake it, and it's supposed, you know, it's like 10 degrees colder than you are. So, but I went over there and washed my head and face, and did it again, and got it wet again, wrung it out, and put it around my neck, and started back down the trail. And a few minutes later, well, heck, my back ain't hurting anymore. So I like that. But I consider that was special help. I really do. Another time on that same run, I looked down, there wasn't nothing under my feet except air. And it was like a 60-foot drop, you know. And then just all of a sudden, I'm saying to myself, you best stay awake. And I'm on the trail running. But I saw that. I don't know if it was just in my mind or if I actually run out of there and somehow got back, which doesn't make any sense that I wouldn't at least be hanging on the edge crawling, you know. But, and I have faith when I start out that stuff like that's going to happen, that I will be saved on that trail. And sure enough. I've had times where doubt, worry, and fear would creep in, telling me, you can't get back to the truck. You can't get back to the truck. You went too far. And now you can't get back. You're going to stop and you're going to get all stiff, and that's where you're going to be. But I always got back to the truck. One time I had to run through a full-fledged mountain. Well, it's not the only time, but there was this full-fledged mountain storm, lightning, sheets of rain. It was like, you know, the end of the world kind of storm. And I had 3 miles to go to the truck. I ran through that storm. Another storm I ran through was a half marathon run over in Canaan Valley. that it was pretty bad. And then there was this one, which the first 3 miles was nothing but a drenched downpour mountain storm. We call them toad grounders. This race is where I learned that there's things you can do and things you can know to where you can, where I could almost compete on these courses with the younger folks. And the shorter distance, which I now call half marathons and under, I started beating about a third of the field. So I started going longer. Fast again. Well, not really. People always drop out. If you finish at all, why, I consider you came in ahead of those that didn't finish. That last fellow on that last race wasn't last because I didn't finish. He beat me, right? Now, what do you want to know? Let's tell the world something.
It's interesting that so far you've spoken with more passion about running than any of your careers.
Well, that's what I'm doing right now.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You should have heard me when I was trying to manufacture that patent.
Right. The invention, yeah.
Yeah, I was on the desk. Still couldn't do it though.
Should have heard him when I was helping him study for the Series 7.
Yeah.
He was all about that, man.
For young men who can't seem to find their passion or their meaning or their purpose, they're kind of drifting, aimless, lost.
I can tell them one thing for certain that I know, in my experience, is that their search, in part, it's not in mission. Yeah, even if you don't know where you're going.
Time and a lot of different turns to come where you are today, to arrive at this, and you're still on that journey.
Right.
But you found something you love.
Kind of a love-hate thing.
Yeah.
I still haven't quite figured it out,
But love and hate seem to be close cousins. You know, it's, what is it they say? Like, hate's not the opposite of love, indifference is. And it seems like that's what I see, you know, when I speak with people who are depressed or apathetic towards life. It's indifference. It's not that they hate things, because if you can hate things, you can love things too, because you can still feel.
yeah, it's the lukewarm that don't do well.
Right. The lack. So what do you think it means to be a good father? Because I want to be a dad.
Well, I thought about that a lot while I was planning and doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I played it was I spent all the time that I could. Leave them at babysitters and go out and stuff like that. Matt hadn't much babysitting when he was with me.
Valuable things a parent can offer a child is just time, quality time, even quantity time.
Waking me up on Sunday mornings in bed saying his ABCs with them magnets that go on the refrigerator correctly at age 2.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I spent all the time I had with the kids when they was little, except for Matt. After age 3, I didn't have much time with him again until he was about 5.
But those are the formative years, right? So if you can set up a good foundation for them, because something I'm really convinced of is that homeschooling is far better than elementary school, middle school, kindergarten, all of that. School exists is because it's free babysitting for parents, basically.
Special problems on that though.
Yeah.
You have to jump through. You still have to be in the system and curriculum. And
Yeah. Like I understand the value of a lot of the base stuff I learned. Like learning to read is really useful. Learning basic arithmetic is really useful. Learning science.
But, you know, with the devaluation of the money, the progression of that has been the case that both parents have to work to.
That's part of the issue.
They
Yeah.
can't stay home and teach their children anymore. So
That's why I'm hoping that whatever career I commit to can generate enough excess capital, or I can work from home or things like that, such that I can really be present. Because it feels like a disservice to a child if you cannot really spend a lot of time with them and really give them the attention they deserve.
And understand more than we give them credit for. All you have to do to know that is look back on your own childhood.
Exactly.
Man, you were having thoughts that no adults, you didn't want any adults to know you was thinking this stuff,
Yeah.
or that you knew this was going on, and you're not supposed to know that shit.
Right.
And that kind of stuff. You remember that.
I do.
Well, it's even younger now
Yeah.
with the technology and stuff.
Yeah. Now kids have tablets in their hands
Right.
before age 4, They have their own smartphones. They have access to the internet and everything.
It's a mistake, but it don't much matter what I think at this point, does it?
I mean, that's why you're here. Because talking in this conversation is because people want to hear what you have to say. I do, at least.
4-year-olds need to be sitting with phones watching interviews. I think they need to have some kind of childhood first.
Right.
4 years old, that's a hopscotch time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And learning to ride a bike, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe. At least you'd be scooting to town on that trike.
Psychotherapist Adam Lane Smith. I was looking at his Twitter account recently, some of his Twitter posts, and I've seen a bunch of interviews with him on a podcast.
Is it the same?
Social things on Twitter. And he's helped a lot of couples. He's been a psychotherapist and all that. Now he's helping men, especially with their issues. But he said something about how with his kids, by age 3, they're having complex conversations. And he says him and his wife never baby talk them. They always talk like they're talking to an adult. And they use big words. And he said his daughter, who's age 4 or something, is already using 4-syllable words in everyday language. And I realized, what if we underestimate kids and then they live up to our underestimation or live down to our underestimation because we just don't think that they're capable of more. And they just grow into that expectation. Because I have a feeling if you expected more from your kids and you just treated them more. And he seems to be living proof of that. He also said something interesting, which is that his wife recently told him when she was pregnant with their 4th kid, that if they had started having kids when they just met, this would be her 7th kid. And she would have preferred that. Counterculture thing, because today so many women are growing up with this idea that they never want kids, kids will destroy their lives. It almost seems like a propaganda movement that kids are bad. But I'm not so sure anymore. I'm starting to question that narrative.
Well, I know one thing as a parent, you never would wish your kids away, no matter what. So, and it's probably true with most anybody looking back on their lives. You wouldn't want it to relieve yourself of any of your experiences, no matter how bad or good, Yeah. And you look back on raising kids, you made all kinds of mistakes. But my heart was always in it. And like I said, I put in a lot of time. Ensured they all knew how to read well and even do research kind of stuff. Once you get them to a point, once you get somebody to a point that they can read well and understand what they're reading, anything they want.
Yeah.
Especially now. It's at their fingertips generally.
Yeah.
Well, let me Google that.
Yeah.
It's right there. The type of research I can do on Google, even me, without a very much of a modern base of technology, compared to what it would take me back when I was studying at the university.
To go to the library.
Oh my Lord.
Yeah.
You've condensed half a day compared to a week.
Right. It's amazing.
Patent searches. I used to have to go to the library and go through microfilm after microfilm after microfilm. And that was the patent search, was blinding yourself with this can't hardly see the screen stuff. Now, it's pretty nice. Just punch in what your describe your invention. Well, these are the similar, shoot fire.
Yeah.
But I don't know how with the way trade is and real piracy and all that stuff, whether or not it'd be worth getting a patent for any of us commoners. I wouldn't recommend it. Just get as much of it out there on the market as you can and take that. Because that's probably be your best.
Market share is worth more than intellectual property.
Yeah. Company will come by and swipe it up, but you want to have already got your piece of the action. Oh well, on to the next idea.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd play it if I was younger.
Fatherhood is really just be engaged, keep your heart in it, be open to possibility, and try to just equip them with the skills they need to learn anything that they want.
So far, that's what I've said. Pretty good playback there.
Yeah. Pointed out one of his sons did not want to read. He didn't want to learn to read. He wasn't interested in it. So he put on Gundam, which is like a robot fighting anime, basically a cartoon in Japanese. And he said, here's Gundam. It's not in our language. If you want to watch it, you're going to have to learn to read. And he said, okay, Dad, I'll do it for Gundam. And then his son learned to read to watch that show. And that's what I realized, like parenting can be so creative, but somehow we've made it so boring. But it,
Chris and his brother were over a period of time. Token economies that we use sometimes in facilities to have kids earn stuff, you know. Rather than take stuff away from them, we had them earn stuff. Went over a lot better. Anyway, I made them some Marcus and Matt money. I had a picture and used the copier and whatnot with a dollar bill and put their face on their money and labeled the other side.
Tyree bucks.
Yeah.
Nice, like Monopoly money.
So, and I explained to them, look, the only thing I have to do by law is educational opportunity.
Is bonus.
Is bonus. You want to watch TV? Here's your money that you earn to pay to watch TV. And, you know, on down the line with whatever. Into that for a while. I'd say it lasted about 3 months on the outside. But, you know, it's on to the next idea.
Yeah, makes sense. Like patents, you're just moving on to the next thing.
Yeah.
You get the best you can out of it. And then I have heard that, you know, replacing an intrinsic reward with an extrinsic one led to the loss of motivation in the activity itself. So for example, kids playing chess, they loved playing chess. Then their parents gave them money for every chess game they played or every book they read, for example. And then when they took the money away, they no longer liked chess or the book intrinsically, because then they started doing it for the reward instead of for the fact that they liked what they were doing.
Makes sense that might happen.
Yeah. And that probably happens in life too, because I've heard people say when your hobby becomes a job, it gets boring. It becomes a chore, an obligation.
Big corporation stepped in and said, we're going to sponsor you.
Yeah.
You're going to the Hard Rock, buddy.
Yeah.
Thing to do, huh?
I've thought about that quite a bit because I know that with sponsorship comes some level of like, oh, you can't swear or you can't ask these questions or
You can't
talk.
be you. You have to be what we want to present.
And I'm like, no thanks. Here's your money back. I'll go do what I want to do. Joe Rogan did say with the Spotify deal that they were very lenient. Like they didn't ask him to change anything. He just had to tell them who he was going to interview, and they didn't care who it was. He just had to let them know, which he did, and then he did his interviews, and it was good. So I'm glad that some companies still seem to respect individuality, because I think they realize if they ask him to change too much, he would lose what he had. People wouldn't like it as much. I think people value genuine, authentic conversations today.
You probably do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it makes sense.
Parenting, we've discussed healthy masculinity, which you said was basically following in the path of Jesus Christ. Compassion, bearing your burden, taking responsibility. Probably traits like discipline, reliability, consistency, all of that. You know, with masculinity that I've been covering is relationships, romantic relationships. So people on the channel know I'm 27 years old. I've never been on a date, never kissed a girl, nothing like that. So I got to start somewhere. It's already, right? Like you want to take me dancing on Friday and I'm going to have to ask a stranger to dance with me. That's going to be scary, but worth doing. Young men, because I know I'm not alone. I think the statistic is it's getting up towards 30% of young men under 30 are still virgins.
Well, for one thing, they're supposed to be a virgin.
Okay.
Society putting pressure on us to have sex and to satisfy carnal need. We want when we want it, and to dispose of everything and just be a flow of world. That's all it is. But patience, even in, put it this way, if we thought we were even married and even have sex, if your darn life,
yeah,
it
is.
The system has developed society far out in 70 doesn't exist to a 25-year-old. I'll never make it till I'm 40, or there'll be something if I do.
I remember as a teenager, I genuinely used to believe that my life would end at 30. I don't know why.
See?
I just had that belief. I just thought, oh, now I'm realizing, no, life goes on. Planning ahead.
My friend, he just died the other day. Mm-hmm. He always told me, I know everybody knows this one, but he always said it, and he's the first person I ever heard say it. So if I knowed I was going to live this long, I'd have took better care of myself. The other day, he was really feeling that. I have that regret if we don't take care of ourselves. What you can do. The blessing that I've been given has been in health. And I was just a crippled old fat man. But, people can change.
You said something interesting to me in the car today, which was whatever the mind believes, the mind can achieve.
Right. Whatever the mind, it was a Napoleon Hill quote.
Right.
Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. It's basically just the law of manifestation. Mm-hmm. Of course, faith without works is dead. But the simplest way to make your faith come into the physical existence is to write it down. Yeah. Because you've brought it. I mean, there's lead in the pencil on the paper now. It can be communicated to another being. It started.
Even speaking it out loud is a way of making it real.
Yeah, sound waves are very real. That's right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you speak out loud and, yeah, your tongue was a sword, all right, because you sure did upset that apple cart.
Yep. And I've realized I've spent so much of my life being afraid of what I wanted to say. Censoring myself, holding back, all of that. And now I feel so free because I just say what I want to say and I don't worry about the consequences, really. Because I know that if I think it needs to be said, then I can live with the consequences. And usually good stuff happens when I say what I want to say. Because it's rare that I want to say something out of spite or hurt or anger. It's usually just...
Where do you think that from?
Which one?
Anyone, really.
Yeah,
Where do they come from?
It's a good question. I don't know.
If I have a thought about an invention, and it's, it's an invention. It's never been thought of before. If I have that, if I don't run out and do something about it, sure enough, in 2 months, there it is. Lots of substance. Stuff that we don't give it its due. Mm-hmm. If you look around this room, other than living beings, everything in it was first a thought in somebody's head. Yep. We create our environment with just thought. And a little bit of action here and there, faith, that kind
But if we couldn't think, we couldn't act. That's the thing.
If we couldn't think, we couldn't act?
Or at least we couldn't build, let me put it that way. We could still act like animals. Animals can act without thinking, but it's instinct. But we had to go beyond instinct to build that couch, right? To build that table lamp, to create electricity. We had to take chaos and make it order. Jordan Peterson was writing in that book, 12 Rules for Life. He wrote about how we have a spark of divinity in us from God because God took chaos and made order out of it when he created the world. And then he imbued us with the ability to do the same and with the free will to choose how we do that.
But there's a faction that does everything it can to prevent us from understanding that. You know, let alone believing it and being able to do the things that Christ himself did.
Right.
But yeah, Jesus said that we would have the powers that he's demonstrated and more. But there's a faction that has pulled out basically any understanding, if you're talking about the masses, of any kind of authority or that they have over their own lives and their own, limitless almost abilities.
I've talked to people and I've noticed this because when I ask people, like, what's stopping you? And we discuss it, and I realize that for some reason, they feel like somebody has to pick them before they can do what they believe they can do. Before they almost need permission from somebody other than themselves to go and try something, to chase their dreams, whatever it might be.
Like you and going dancing.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And with this podcast, it took me a while. Like I probably could have started it 2 years before I did. So I'm not sure where that fear comes from, but it does seem like we feel restricted, not by physical reality, but by society, by social norms.
Well, the man says, do not fear all the time in that book. Where it comes from is the faction that's trying to keep a hood over our eyes.
Right. You mentioned fear, doubt, and worry are their tools of trade.
Doubt, fear, and worry, tools of Satan.
I think, because, okay, from my estimation, it seems like for whatever reason, these temptations, whether it's weed, video games, porn, Netflix, whatever, these temptations seem to disproportionately hurt young men. They seem to be the ones more susceptible to it rather than young women. And I don't know why. But it seems like young men are more easily distracted, sedated, pulled away from purpose and drive. Seem to be more conscientious.
I'm not sure if I agree with that or not, because the way I see it, the young women have just as difficult a time as the young men in these times.
How does their difficulty manifest? I'm curious about that because they outperform young men. Anxiety, maybe there's more internal strife.
More anxiety amongst young women these days as compared to 50 years ago.
Okay. And is that because their future is less certain or there's more doubt about?
Well, and this comes into play in all our lives. It's because of the rapid change that takes place on a daily basis now. Mm-hmm. It's because of instant communication, instant failure, that kind of thing in some people's minds. But it's just a rapid change of the way we relate to one another. Mm-hmm. I meet very few people that can sit down and talk face to face with in the conversation. So this is a real treat for me. It's been a long time since I sat down and talked to anybody like Marcus,
Maybe is it like social media eroding our attention span? Is it just that we've gotten used to not connecting with human beings, but connecting with our computers and our phones, that when we're face to face with a human being, we don't know how to connect?
Well, I know this is cliche, but picture the kids at the mall that go to the mall together and they're standing there talking to each other on their phone. Yeah. Something's up with that. Mm-hmm. That's not normal. That's not the society I grew up in. Right. That's some people, walk us like a zombie apocalypse, almost. I mean,
We're sedated, kind of
yeah.
slumbering. Start in this world.
I think it's going to take a great shaking.
Do you think that was or no? Something greater than that.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good place to wrap up. Any final thoughts you'd like to share for young men out there who want to better their lives and better themselves?
Tell them that no matter what kind of aspirations they have, there'll be people try to keep them from getting there. For the process. Separate from those people as much as you can. I mean, like if it's family, you don't want to separate completely or anything like that, but it's the people closest to you, the input into your brain that you can't do that. Nothing done. So try to push out away from any of them in your lives until you're in yours. Or hope, so to speak, I guess would be better.
Yeah.
Failure, but, you know, an idea, well, somebody close to you is going to say, oh, I've seen that out there. It'll be the end of that idea when in actuality it might have been a good bona fide idea. Going a little bit further with it and seeing, you know.
That discouragement is often a sign that you're on the right path.
A lot of resistance from any direction you're going the right direction.
Right. And that's an unintuitive lesson for many people. It certainly was for me. People to take away from this
Yeah, it is.
episode. Yeah.
About.
Yeah. It was great having you on.
Welcome.
I look forward to future conversations.
Come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll be here all week.
Yeah. So will I.